Hello, everybody, and welcome. I'm so excited to have you all with us today. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Allison Cooper, the founder of Project Motherhood. Oh gosh, I can't talk. Can't even say the name of my company. And I'm so excited because I am here today with Aja Chavez. She's the National Executive Director for Mission Prep. And we're going to dive into all things, support and mental health awareness for our teenage group. So, Aja, please give us a little spiel about yourself and tell us a little bit more about what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Allison, thank you so much for having me. This is really exciting. I am wildly passionate about working with adolescents. I've worked with teens in various capacities for over 20 years. So I started as a teacher. I taught history and saw pretty early on that our middle schoolers and our high schoolers, while many of them were extremely academic, they were trying to figure out how to survive in their school environment, sometimes home environments, and then just in society in general. And so that really had me shifting my focus and my career, really. And so became a marriage and family therapist and have worked with teens and their families who are in deep struggle in different ways for the past 15 years. So started working in residential adolescent care, private practice, and here I am back working in adolescent residential care again, sometimes when the teens are at like the deepest, darkest moments.
That's amazing. It is. It's so true. We have a teen and they're moody and they're going through things and they don't necessarily want to talk about it, so it's definitely a struggle. Yeah. So I'm just going to dive right into our questions here. I'm so excited to chat through all this. First and foremost, what is the most common mental health challenge you're seeing in teens right now, especially post-pandemic?
Yeah, it's so interesting because it really has shifted pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. I'll just kind of speak to pre-pandemic. The teens really wanted to, I call it like cocoon and hibernate. They really needed this break and they wanted to just kind of be like removed from almost like removed from society. They just needed these breaks, right? Where post-pandemic, what we're seeing is while teens are naming and really like this strong desire to have this normal, typical adolescent experience and be out and about and do all of the fun teenage things, they don't know how to. There's this disconnect and this divide of how now do I engage in healthy relationships? How do I make friends? How do we, and so because of that, what we're seeing is immense isolation. We've been seeing so many statistics that have come out over the past 5 years of increased rates of sadness, loneliness, which really lead to what we see at Mission Prep, which is a lot of suicidality. It always surprises parents and just people in general. The rates of teens that are actively thinking about or trying to take their lives is staggering. We are seeing a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety, and to the point where they're not able to function and have effective, full lives.
That's really scary.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm going to piggyback on that question because I feel like I can't just jump right to the next one. What are, some tools that you can suggest for parents if the suicide conversation does come up?
Well, first, I would say have the suicide conversation regardless of if your teen is bringing it up or not.
That is great. Yeah.
Yeah. Really, it is a horribly uncomfortable conversation to have if you're not a mental health professional. It can even be for a new mental health professional. It can be kind of scary and daunting to have. I will say this, having that conversation will not put the idea of suicide in someone's mind if they don't already have it. So inviting a conversation about suicide in with someone who is seems like they're doing well, it's not going to increase the risk or the probability that they will engage in suicidal thoughts or suicidal behaviors. So please, please, please have that conversation. And the way that you might go about it is you might say, hey, I read this article, or I saw this, I heard some people talking and they mentioned that there are these really high rates, which means it could be you thinking about it or one of your friends. And either way, let's start having this conversation. Have you ever had thoughts or feelings where you just felt like kind of hopeless? You know, that's normal. So normalizing it, having the conversation where it's like, hey, many of us at different times in our life kind of feel like, oof, I just kind of want to tap out. I don't want to do this anymore. This feels like too much. And so asking it you can ask it in a relaxed conversational way. It doesn't have to be like the sit down and let's have a serious conversation. While it's a very serious topic, you can have it in a lighter manner.
I'm so glad that you brought that up, because I feel like a lot of parents kind of step back from bringing that up. But at the same time, during this period of their lives, we just, we got to be open to having these tough conversations, whether it's hard or easy for us.
Absolutely, because you even said yourself, right? Like having a teen, they're not always going to be forthcoming.
No, if anything, they're want to be up in their room. They want to be by themselves. You have to do your best. I don't know about everybody watching, but we have to be the ones who engage in the conversation with our teen. He has his moments where he'll, want to talk, and we take advantage of that. But on a normal, regular basis, I try to come at him with questions other than like, how was your day?
Smart.
Get him talking. So how can parents differentiate between typical teen behavior and signs that their child may be struggling with something deeper like anxiety or depression?
I love this question because adolescence, what a messy, challenging time.
Yeah.
And that is developmentally appropriate. It is meant to be a time of some risk and some rebellion. Dan Siegel, who's a phenomenal author, has a book all about the adolescent, kind of like the brain development and what we should be seeing. And really what we should be seeing is some of this like irritability and the like pushback, and even sometimes the questioning of the values and the like, I don't want to do this. And it's really adolescents being able to with what we call differentiate. So this like separating from being a child fully dependent on their caregivers and really needing their caregivers for everything, to these young adults who are independent. They're engaging in agency, making decisions, navigating through that. And so that's a challenging, difficult time. It's meant to be uncomfortable. So it can be really hard to find that line between, okay, this is my teen being a teen, and this is my teen who might be heading down a path that is going to lead to some like really intense struggles. So what I always say is, if there are these large, very noticeable shifts in behavior, in their mood, and that can be really challenging because we know adolescence is this time where there's ups and downs, but if those ups and downs are kind of staying a little bit longer, they're staying around a little bit longer, if there are changes in their nutrition, their diet, their sleep habits, and again, this is all really hard for a parent to say like, okay, well, my kid sleeps 15 hours a day because they're really busy and their brains are still developing and all of this. But if you're noticing 2 or more of these changes, that's when it's really important to step in and start having some more curiosity about it. You can attempt to have the conversation. Most teens don't actually know and have the what we call emotional literacy, the ability to verbalize what's going on for them. If there is a shift in friendships, that's a big one. If you're noticing that something that they have been doing regularly is no longer appealing to them, or so let's say they love to like go in the rooms and they're on Discord or they're playing Fortnite and they do that with their friends. And to a parent that might be like, oh, that's not the healthiest thing. But if that all of a sudden stops and they're no longer doing that, you really want to take notice.
Mhm.
I think it's also normal and okay, and I'll just kind of throw this out there, to like every once in a while, you can say like, let's just, your behavior's a little bit off. Let's do a drug test, and
Mm.
let's check on this and just see if there's anything physically going on. One, like physically, maybe you set up a physical. Two, maybe you would do a drug test, and then if it's not something physical or it's not some substance related, well, if it is substance related, you're going to want to take some action on that. But yeah, take some
Abs-
action.
that's a really good point. And I also love how you said if two or more things. So that's like a really good sort of like baseline for parents of teenagers to say like, okay, we're checking the boxes, there's this is many things that we need to have a talk.
Yeah, I would also say, as I'm thinking about it, we're looking at different environments too. So if you're able to call the school and talk to the school counselor, talk to the teachers and just say, hey, have you noticed any difference? If they're on a sport, talking to the coach, people that get to observe your child in different environments that maybe you're not around in. Because sometimes if it's just isolated to home, sometimes
It's just
yeah.
being in their place of comfort and, just kind of having their moment. Yeah.
Lucky parents.
Yeah, right. Let's dive into the topic of social media. This is, a really big one. What role does social media play in the mental health of adolescents today? And how can parents create some healthier boundaries around it without being, being like the uncool parent?
Yeah, I love that. And it's when we get to the point of boundaries, it's not just like being the uncool parent, but it's really not sustainable, or honestly, it's not helpful to completely remove the social media. And I'll get to that. So yeah, the impact that social media has on teens today, it's twofold. There's benefit and there are the negative consequences, as with most things in life, unfortunately. So the benefit, I'll start with that. This generation, so Gen Z and younger, are hungry to understand their mental well-being. They're hungry to understand it. They're hungry to talk about it. They are really engaged in like mental health awareness and mental health sustainability. So engaging in their own therapeutic practices, which is wonderful. We've never seen this amount of people that are so excited. And when I say excited, I'm like, they're curious, right? And they really want that. And social media allows many times for that. There are a lot of therapists that have great content out there. We're talking about some of these struggles that maybe were really shadowed by shame and stigma in the past. And so people would suffer alone and in silence. And so now there's a platform and a place to talk about it, which is really wonderful. The flip side of it, which we know there is, I call it the anonymity of aggression. It's the bullying, right? And it's like all the harsh stuff that sometimes people feel more free. We talked about this before we started recording. People feel more free to be cruel and unkind behind this mask of anonymity, where you don't really know the person. You'll never really interact or engage with them. Or even if you're in school, there's still this like protective barrier that people feel being behind social media. It allows for kind of this cruelty that adolescents and teens, we can't get away from it. They can't get away from it. It's not like in the past where they would unfortunately have to maybe suffer through it during a school day, but then they could leave and get away from it. It is nonstop. It's this constant content bombardment of images. And I don't know about for you, but when I was growing up, we could turn the news on and we could turn it off. And we could step away. There is no stepping away. And so not only are our teens experiencing maybe bullying or this aggression, there's also never this chance for their nervous systems to regulate and relax, because you're constantly in the loop and in the scroll and seeing the stuff. And every once in a while, there's that good thing, you get that dopamine hit. And it's like, oh, that feels so good. And that's what has us going back and scrolling. It's very similar to gambling. We're in the scroll loop.
Oh, interesting. And now, yeah.
Huh. I can speak more to that.
Yes, that's so interesting. I'm like, okay, hold on, all the questions, but
I could talk about this nonstop. So at Mission Prep, one thing that we do differently than all other programs in the country is we actually invite technology in, because when I was in my private practice, the number one issue parents would name for their teen was their phones. Their devices, technology. And yet no one was really addressing it or talking about it. And so I decided, okay, in building this out, let's do something different and let's really address it. Let's do the research, let's gain the understanding, and then let's really create a therapeutic group where they have exposure to their cell phones, to their technology, to all the apps. And then we get to teach them how to have a healthy relationship, resilient-based relationship with their devices.
That should honestly be taught in school. It should be a class in school, and in high school have to take nowadays, because the world has shifted so much. I love everything about your answer to that question, but I do just want to point out how extra I love the fact that you shared the positive with the negative, because I don't think that I've ever spoken with somebody who's said anything other than you need to be restrictive, you need to be especially working in social media. I believe that there is definitely a good side to it. It's helped a lot of people through a lot of different things and solves a lot of problems for people. And it's just the learning, teens learning how to cope and navigate that.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. It creates community too. Even when we're looking at gaming and anything that has our teens feeling a sense of community and togetherness in a time where it's so divisive is wildly important.
That's amazing. I'm so glad that you brought that up. Okay, so what is one thing that you wish every parent knew about supporting their teens' emotional wellness, even when they're not opening up?
Oh my gosh, there's so much. But I would say there is there is always something going on. There is always, I would encourage everyone that's watching and listening, think about how much internal chatter you all have, right? I'm guessing mostly adults
a lot
that are on here, right? Yeah. It's a lot. And what is that chatter telling you? It is telling you information about yourself, many times false. It's interpreting others' reactions and what you might assume is what they're thinking about you and what they're feeling about you. Again, many times false. And so this internal dialogue that we have, and maybe as adults, we've had some experience kind of separating from it or building awareness or recognition around it. Our teens don't learn how to do that. We're not having those conversations with them. Sometimes we are, but most of the time, it's just not a normal, natural conversation that we would have. And so knowing that there is most likely always something going on that has them shifting their thoughts and beliefs about themselves, their thoughts and beliefs about the world, and will affect their mood. And their mood is, okay, this is more than one thing, but their emotional, okay, their emotional well-being, we look at what's called Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which at the bottom are these foundational elements. What our teens need, or they need sleep, let them sleep. They need nutrient-rich foods. They can survive on Takis. I've seen it happen. But if there's any way to get some other nutrients, liquid, some movement in there, and then safety. They need to feel safe in their brains and their bodies and their environment. And those are so important. so that was the two things. One, there's always something going on. And two, the foundation on these like lower, maybe things that we aren't thinking about regularly, will dramatically affect a teen's mood and their emotional well-being.
Interesting. Love that. Okay, so sort of to piggyback on that a little bit, but Mission Prep focuses on preparation and support. How does early intervention change outcomes for teens, not teens, experiencing mental health issues?
It's vital. Early intervention is vital. So I'll just kind of speak a little bit to what we see at Mission Prep. Like you said, many times clients are coming to us, teens are coming to us because parents are starting to recognize, hey, there's something off. Some of those areas that I mentioned before, there's something shifting and let's address this. Let's nip it in the bud before it turns into a huge crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes our teens are coming to us like post-crisis or in the midst of crisis too. But to be able to create this preventative work and path, we see, we also work with adults in AM/FM. And so we get to see what happens when it's not addressed with many of our adult clients. And so this prevention allows this toolbox, we call it like a toolbox of skills, of insight, of skills, of new ways of engaging with themselves and with others, of new perceptions and interpretations. And it also gives them the base to help navigate not just mental health, but really all areas of life. So we're really looking at how can we help this adolescent get on a path to the most effective, meaningful plan and path, whether that's academically. A lot of our teens are preparing for their college bound, they're preparing for college, they're preparing for to live independently for the first time ever. And so giving them all of those social, emotional skills while also giving them like identity awareness and information where they can really confidently know themselves and then have the ability to verbalize in the world. We see that they go on to live these really fulfilling, incredible lives. And the work that gets to be done in just like 45 days, such a short period of time, sets them off on this like really amazing trajectory.
Yeah. That's incredible. And I feel like, honestly, everybody should be in therapy because it's just so good for you. And people are so quick to, push their mental health to the side and try to use other things to fix the problems. And, it's great to have therapy at any age in your life. It's just such a great tool in the toolbox. So let's talk about language and the ways that, we talk to our teens. Are there any, specifics, supportive ways that you can suggest that can help us talk to them without them shutting down and feeling judged?
Yeah. I'm even thinking about, I have an 8-year-old, and even the language that he uses is like, there are times when I'm like, I don't know what Sigma boy means. I literally had to Google Sigma. And I was like, oh, it's positive. Okay. So some parents might struggle with this one. However, let them just talk. Let them just talk without stepping in and saying like, oof, that was disrespectful. Or you shouldn't do that. Or right, like the comments that like as parents we desperately want to say because we're like, oh no, oh, we want to be helpful.
It's hard.
So hard. We want to be helpful. We want to redirect. We want to step in and help them build that insight. And the second that we start doing that, when a teen is starting to open up, that's when their internal dialogue kicks in and they start telling themselves like they don't care. They're not hearing what I'm actually saying. They just want to fix this, or there's something about me that needs to be changed. And that will 9 times out of 10 have the teen shutting down. And so if we can show up from this quiet, curious, non-judgmental space, there will 100% be time later to step in and say, wow, you were kind of cursing a little bit there, and that didn't feel good as your parent to be spoken to like that. I want to hear everything you have to say, but I was kind of distracted by the language you were using. Is there any way that, you could, that conversation can be had later? Or the conversation around like, hey, you mentioned this thing about your friend who is being really, really mean to you. I want to follow back up on that. I have some follow-up questions. So really just listening. And if you're going to ask a question, you might ask something like, or say something like, oof, that sounds like a lot. What do you need from me right now? How can I be helpful right now? As parents, we think we know what they want and need. That might not be it.
So I guess less questioning, more kind of taking it all in and showing your support. Yeah, that's a great tip. I want to talk about a little bit about sort of us as parents. How far should we go in modeling our, a good relationship with our mental health? Should we be having a talk about our mental health with our kids? Is that appropriate? What should we be doing here?
Yes and no. Talking about it and modeling it. You mentioned therapy. I am biased because I'm a therapist, but I also agree that being in therapy for anybody, whether you're in struggle or not, could be extremely helpful. But so our kids, our teens, they learn by observing. They need that modeling. And so the way that we can do it as a parent without kind of burdening our kids, our teens with kind of our stuff, is to talk about it in a way of like, let me give you an example, right? So coming home from work, maybe you're like hustling and bustling, or let's say you're someone who stays at home, but it's just a very, very busy day and it's feeling like things are one on top of another and it's overwhelming. And oh my gosh, to be able to say, like, our kids can see it on us. They know, they're going to ask us. And I can always tell, like, if my kids are scanning me and they're like, is this my fault? Is there something I need to do? And so being able to name, kind of what's going on internally, I'll just kind of have that dialogue externally, like, there's a lot going on in my day. I'm trying to cram way too much in. I think I overbooked myself. It has me feeling a little bit, what is it that it has me feeling? Oh, anxious. And I can tell that I'm anxious because I can feel it in my belly. I have like butterflies, but not the good kind of butterflies. It's not excitement. And I kind of feel like I can feel my heart racing. I wonder what I need right now. And then my son now, he'll be like, I think you need some deep breaths. But sometimes it's like, I need to take a break, or I need some deep breaths, or like, maybe I need to say no to some of the things. Maybe I need to cancel some of the things. And so having those conversations so that they can relate, and that they see that we're also like, not just the struggle that we're in, but then the engagement and solution. What are we going to do about what it is? Maybe it's you're saying like, I need to have a conversation with this person because my feelings got really hurt and it's still sitting with me. And then invite, the more you do that, the more your teens hopefully will start asking you questions about it. And the more it normalizes these very human experiences of feeling down, of feeling anxious, of feeling overwhelmed, feelings being hurt, feeling left out.
And that kind of puts things into perspective for them too, helps them understand and navigate a little bit. Yeah, that's great advice. So I have one last question for you. I have and totally enjoyed this conversation. For teens who are resistant to therapy or outside help, but need help, what are some creative or non-traditional ways to introduce emotional support and build trust with them?
That's such a great one. Many teens, so in my private practice there, I would get a lot of teens in and they would be like, I've been to so many therapists, they're so bad, they're so bad, or they've heard from their friends. And so I would say go a couple of different avenues. If there is like again, going back to like a coach or a mentor or a trusted someone in their life that you really like as a parent, you can identify this person as a solid, strong, steady, like they're aligned with maybe like your value systems, or you know that your teen can really open up and talk with them. I would maybe have a conversation with them and ask like, hey, you know, my teen's in struggle right now. Is there any way that you'd be willing to have a conversation with them? There are some really cool creative therapists out there. I'm just thinking about someone that I visited recently where he actually uses Roblox and different gaming and Lego building and games as a way to build that rapport and that connection, and the therapeutic conversations that are being had while building or playing a game or being invited into their world, whether it's like Fortnite or Roblox or Minecraft or whatever, is incredible. So being creative, thinking outside of the box, finding a therapist that talk to your network. If you're a mom or a dad, a parent, talk to your network. Nobody might be talking about it, but somebody is probably engaging in it. Ask them, is there anybody that you would recommend? Ask the school counselors if there's anybody that they would recommend. There are some really cool therapists out there and counselors out there. They're going to be exactly what it is that your child needs. It's just being willing to kind of seek that out and be creative and be patient. Therapists are really, really booked right now.
Does it normally take, you know, a few tries sometimes to get it right? I know I'm adding on to the questions here, but is that like the norm? And how long do you kind of give it with a therapist before you're kind of like, I think maybe we need to try somebody new?
Yes, it is the norm, because that relationship and rapport is, research shows us, is about 90% of the therapeutic benefit comes from feeling a sense of connection and almost like identity. It doesn't have to be somebody of like the same socioeconomic or race or gender, but it's somebody that you can get in there and you can be like, oh man, okay, I think this person gets me, or like they're my vibe. That was so California, but like they're my vibe. And it might take 3-4 different attempts, and I would say, and that can feel like such an investment, right? Like that can get a little bit pricey. And I get that if you're not utilizing insurance. I would say after 3 times, if your teen is like, I don't like this person, it's not on your teen. Find someone else.
Yeah.
You're like, I love this person, they're amazing. Your teen is a completely separate, different person, and who they're going to connect with might be completely and separate from you.
I love hearing you say that. I think that that's so reassuring for parents going through, you know, trying to navigate all of that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here today. This was such an incredible conversation, and not just because I'm a mom with a teen in that age group, but I know that I learned so much, and I know that everybody watching is, you know, taking away so much knowledge, and they're, you know, excited to start applying it to their lives. And, you know, I mean, I will say for me, kind of, what's the word? Just like my approach, just shifting my approach too. Just, you know, like a few little things. And sometimes that's just, you know, the shift that it takes.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. This was really a pleasure.
Absolutely. We are so excited to have you here. And thank you all for tuning in. Until next time, we'll talk soon. Bye.